Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit. Consciousness, sense certainty, or the this and meaning. The knowledge or knowing, which is at the start, or is immediately our object, cannot be anything else but immediate knowledge itself, a knowledge of the immediate or of what simply is. Our approach to the object must also be immediate or receptive. We must alter nothing in the object as it presents itself. In apprehending it, we must refrain from trying to comprehend it. Because of its concrete certainty, because of its concrete content, sense certainty immediately appears as the richest kind of knowledge, indeed a knowledge of infinite wealth for which no bounds can be found, either when we reach out into space and time, in which it is dispersed, or when we take a bit of this wealth and by division enter into it. Moreover, sense certainty appears to be the truest knowledge, for it has not as yet omitted anything from the object, but has the object before it in its perfect entirety. But in the event, this very certainty proves itself to be the most abstract and purest truth. All that it says about what it knows is that just that it is, and its truth contains nothing but the sheer being of the thing. Consciousness, for its part, is in this certainty only as a pure I, or I am in it only as a pure this, and the object similarly only as a pure this. I am certain of this particular thing, not because I, qua consciousnness in knowing it, have developed myself or thought about it in various ways, and also not because the thing of which I am certain in virtue of a host of distinct qualities would be in its own self a rich complex of connections or related in various ways to other things. Neither of these has anything to do with the truth of sense certainty. Here, neither I nor the thing has the significance of a complex process of mediation. The I does not have the significance of a manifold imagining or thinking, nor does the thing signify something that has a host of qualities. On the contrary, the thing is, and it is, merely because it is. It is this is the essential point for sense knowledge, and this pure being, or this simple immediacy, constitutes its truth. Similarly, certainty as a connection is an immediate, pure connection. Consciousness is I, nothing more, a pure this. The singular consciousness knows a pure this, or the single item. But when we look carefully at this pure being, which constitutes the essence of this certainty, and which this certainty pronounces to be its truth, we see that much more is involved. An actual sense certainty is not merely this pure immediacy, but an instance of it. Among the countless differences cropping up here, we find in every case that the crucial one is that in sense certainty pure being at once splits up into what we have called the two thises, one this as I, and the other this as object. When we reflect on this difference, we find that neither one nor the other is only immediately present in sense certainty, but each is at the same time mediated. I have this certainty through something else, viz. The thing. And it, similarly, is in sense certainty through something else, viz. Through the I. It is not just we who make this distinction between essence and instance, between immediacy and mediation. On the contrary, we find it within sense certainty itself, and it is to be taken up in the form in which it is present there, not as we have just defined it. One of the terms is posited in sense certainty in the form of a simple immediate being, or as the essence, the object. The other, however, is posited as what is unessential and mediated, something which in sense certainty is not in itself, but through the mediation of another, the I, a knowing which knows the object only because the object is, while the knowing may either be or not be, but the object is. It is what is true, or it is the essence. It is, regardless of whether it is known or not, and it remains, even if it is not known, whereas there is no knowledge if the object is not there. The question must therefore be considered whether in sense certainty itself the object is in fact the kind of essence that self-certainty proclaims it to be, whether this notion of it as the essence corresponds to the way it is present in sense certainty. To this end we have not to reflect on it and ponder what it might be in truth, but only to consider the way in which it is present in sense certainty. It is then sense certainty itself that must be asked, what is the this? If we take the this in the twofold shape of its being, as now and as here, the dialectic it has in it will receive a form as intelligible as this itself is. To the question, what is now, let us answer, now is night. In order to test the truth of this sense certainty, a simple experiment will suffice. We write down this truth. A truth cannot lose anything by being written down, any more than it can lose anything through our preserving it. If now, this noon, we look again at the written truth, we shall have to say that it has become stale. The now that is night is preserved, that is, it is treated as what it professes to be, as something that is, but it proves itself to be, on the contrary, something that is not. The now does indeed preserve itself, but as something that is not night. Equally, it preserves itself in face of the day that it now is, as something that also is not day, in other words, as a negative in general. The self-preserving now is therefore not immediate, but mediated, for it is determined as a permanent and self-preserving now, through the fact that something else, viz. day and night, is not. As so determined, it is still just as simply now as before, and in this simplicity is indifferent to what happens to it in it, just as little as night and day are its being, just as much also as its day and night. It is not in the least affected by this or its other being. A simple thing of this kind, which is through negation, which is neither this nor that, and not this, and is with equal indifference, this as well as that, such a thing we call a universal. So it is in fact the universal that is the true content of sense certainty. It is as a universal too that we utter what the sensuous content is. What we say is this, that is the universal, this, or it is, that is being in general. Of course, we do not envisage the universal, this or being in general, but we utter the universal. In other words, we do not strictly say what in this sense certainty we mean to say, but language, as we see, is the more truthful. In it we ourselves directly refute what we mean to say, and since the universal is the true content of sense certainty, and language expresses this true content alone, it is just not possible for us ever to say or express in words a sensuous being that we mean. The same will be the case with the other form of the this, with here. Here is, for example, the tree. If I turn around, the truth has vanished and is converted into its opposite. No tree is here, but a house instead. Here itself does not vanish. On the contrary, it abides constant in the vanishing of the house, the tree, etc., and is indifferently house or tree. Again, therefore, the this shows itself to be a mediated simplicity or a universality. Pure being remains, therefore, as the essence of this sense certainty, since sense certainty has demonstrated in its own self that the truth of its object is the universal. But this pure being is not an immediacy, but something to which negation and mediation are essential. Consequently, it is not what we mean by being, but is being defined as an abstraction, or as the pure universal, and our meaning, for which the true content of sense certainty is not the universal, is all that is left over in the face of this empty or indifferent now and here. When we compare the relation in which knowing and the object first come on the scene with the relation in which they now stand in this result, we find that it is reversed. The object which was supposed to be the essential element in sense certainty is now the unessential element, for the universal which the object has come to be is no longer what the object was supposed essentially to be for sense certainty. On the contrary, the certainty is now to be found in the opposite element, viz. In knowing, which previously was the unessential element. Its truth is in the object as my object, or in its being mine. It is because I know it. Sense certainty then, though indeed expelled from the object, is not yet thereby overcome, but only driven back into the I. We have now to see what experience shows us about its reality in the I.